Chapter 47. Winners and Losers. There were newspaper stories. There were visits from Dr. Carey. There were emailed pictures of Marvin and Boardwalk's new home downriver. The babies were growing. There was a picture of me standing next to Marvin, one that Dr. Carey took on that first day, surrounded by newspaper clippings in the glass display case right when you walked into our school. It made me self-conscious, but Tommy said it should make me feel cool. There was Annie Bell, who stayed in seat 12 with me and showed me her rocks and talked to me about El Nino and the Farmer's Almanac predictions for summer. When we'd hang out at the creek, she'd pull more rocks from the creek bed, and we'd walk the railroad tracks and look for old train marbles when my mom and dad weren't around to tell us not to be fearless, daring, and brave. Tommy stayed with his new friends, and they treated him better even though he wore cheap sneakers. Mike said he wanted to be friends with me too, but I decided to wait and make up my mind after summer. There was the science contest. I won it with my project about a brand new animal, an animal that ate plastic, an animal whose scat could eat a hole in your shoes or your floor or your car tire. I called the project the Slightly Imperfect Pollution Solution. I figured there was no point in lying since none of us were perfect. I used some of Dr. Carey's videos. I used my original pictures. I wrote a research paper that was 3 times as long as anyone else's. There would be a summer vacation working with Dr. Carey sometimes, and playing with Marvin as he moved downriver. There would be more games of fetch and more research and more conservation and more conversation about how Marvin could help us and how we could help him. It was a long process. That's all anyone ever said about conservation. It's a long process. I was happy I got to be part of it, no matter how long it would be. There was a future in this. Miss G said I'd make a great scientist. She said I could do what Dr. Carey did, or I could be one of those people who travels the world helping animals in places where habitats were being destroyed. She told me I could be on TV if I wanted. I could be anything I wanted to be, but really, I knew I wanted to be a teacher like her. Finding Marvin Gardens had taught me so much. I wanted to pass it on. 100 years ago, science teachers were explaining to students how the Wright brothers flew an airplane in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina in 1903. 100 years ago, science teachers were talking about Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. 100 years from now, teachers would be teaching about things we would never guess. I wanted to do that. I wanted to find other kids like me and make them care about where they lived and how to make things better. 100 years ago, my great-grandmother had a dream. I like to think she dreamed of a day her great-grandson won a science contest and decided to become a teacher. I like to think she dreamed of the day her wild patch, the only piece of her own dirt she could buy back, would thrive and hold her family close. And it did. We planted a garden and fruit trees and wildflowers. We picnicked there. We had campfires there. We even pitched a tent in summer and sometimes and slept there. Bernadette brought her boyfriends there, but don't tell Dad. And one day, I would sit at the picnic table beside the creek and fill out my college applications. I would read my acceptance letters. I would read my rejection letters, too. I would write my graduation speech about the day I found an animal and thought he was eating my liver. The speech would be about the nature of fear and how it stops us from doing things. There was hope. There had to be hope. A Devlin with a purpose couldn't be discouraged, and I wasn't.